So we are going to continue discussing fundamentals. Let's recap what we did last time. We said that economics is about decisions. And we said that as economists, we want to predict what decisions people will make. We started learning about the principles of rational decision making. Remember, we said that, okay, if economics is all about decisions, then we want to start to come up with a framework to figure out how people make decisions. And we said we're going to boil this down to three important principles. The first one is that the true cost of something is what you give up for it. We called that opportunity cost. The second assumption is that people act in their own self-interest. As we said, it doesn't mean people never make mistakes. It doesn't mean that people are always selfish. It just means that when you do something, you're doing it because that's what you think is the best choice. Today, what we're going to do is learn the third principle, which is that people think and act a little bit at a time. Look at what that means. The term that we're going to be using is marginal decision making. So marginal means a little bit. So if something is of marginal importance, that means it's a little bit important. Well, lots of decisions are how much decisions, not either or decisions. So for example, how much to study for a midterm. Hopefully, you have decided that for your next midterm, you are going to study. You're not making a decision of whether or not to study. Hopefully what you're doing is you're deciding how much to study. Should you study 1 hour or 10 hours or 20 hours? That's the kind of question we're going to be thinking about. So when we think marginally, what we're talking about are small decisions. Small decisions of, should I keep studying? Should I study 1 more hour? Decision making is often done a little at a time. So for example, when I decided to buy a car, first I decided to buy a vehicle with 3 rows of seats. Then I decided to buy a minivan. We went and test drove some different vehicles that had 3 rows of seats. We liked the minivan the most. Then I decided on a brand. Then I decided on a trim level. Then I decided on the color. And I wound up with this minivan. One of the things we want to think about is that at each stage, at each one of these small decisions, I considered the costs and benefits of my options. So for example, a minivan will get better fuel economy, but will not have 4-wheel drive. Leather seats are more comfortable, but also more expensive. And so marginal means focusing on these small decisions. So the benefit of studying for 1 more hour, or even 1 more minute, or the benefit of an extra cubic foot of cargo space in my vehicle. Again, do I want to have just a little bit more space? Do I want to study for just a little bit more time? So let's look at an example where we will actually start to see some numbers. So we'll say that I decide to eat some ice cream. The first bite tastes great. The next bite also tastes great. But at some point, I notice that I'm not enjoying the bites as much. The last couple bites aren't even that enjoyable, and I wind up with a stomachache. So let's focus on how much I liked each bite of ice cream. And this brings us to a term we call marginal benefit. Marginal benefit is the additional benefit associated with 1 more unit of an activity. Note that I liked the first bite of ice cream a lot more than the last. That's a common thing to happen, right? You have 5 cups of coffee, chances are you liked the first one a lot more than you liked the 5th one. If you go on roller coasters all day, chances are the first roller coaster was the most fun. By the end of the day, you're sort of tired of them. You're feeling you've been shaking around all day. So we usually like the first bit of something more than the last. And this brings us to decreasing marginal benefit. That is the negative relationship between the quantity consumed and the marginal benefit. So negative relationship means that when one goes up, so when quantity goes up, the other goes down, so marginal benefit goes down. Notice that what we're not saying here is that you don't like the second, third, and fourth bite of ice cream. What we're saying is that you don't like them quite as much as you like the first bite. Most activities have decreasing marginal benefits. So I use the examples of ice cream, coffee, and roller coasters. Most activities are like this. This is also known as diminishing marginal benefits. Next, let's think about marginal costs. So we'll continue our story of me eating lots of ice cream. We'll say that after eating a pint of ice cream, I decide that I should go running. The first mile feels pretty good. Just kidding. The first 100 yards feels pretty good. Not great. The next 100 yards really feel not great. And I give up after 300 yards. So have to show the GIF of carbo loading before a run. That's what making these slides reminded me of. So marginal cost is the additional cost associated with one more unit of an activity. So the cost in terms of how much I disliked the running associated with one more run of 100 yards. So the first 100 yards was not nearly as unpleasant as the last 100 yards, which leads us to what we call increasing marginal cost. Increasing marginal cost is the positive relationship between the quantity produced and marginal cost. Positive means when quantity produced goes up, so when the amount of running I do goes up, marginal cost goes up. So in this case, I was attempting to produce my own fitness, and like running is not the only example, most activities have increasing marginal costs. So if you think about someone who has a job where you a lot of manual labor throughout the day, you might start off feeling good in the morning, you're well rested, you got a cup of coffee and a good breakfast in you. Then by the end of the day, you're sore, you're tired, maybe you're sunburned, and at that point you're just ready to go home, and so you find the 8th or 10th hour of work to be a lot worse than the first hour. This is one of the reasons why employers pay overtime, right? In order to keep you working after you've been there 8 hours, they're going to offer to pay you more for that 9th hour. So gives us the idea of what I mean by a marginal benefit and a marginal cost. Next thing, what we're going to do is start calculating marginal benefits and marginal costs. So before we saw the verbal definition of a marginal benefit, now we're going to see the arithmetic definition. So marginal benefit equals change in total benefits divided by change in quantity. This triangle here is the Greek letter delta. It represents change. So we can write that as delta TB, change in total benefits, divided by delta Q, or change in quantity. We usually think of marginal benefit as the additional benefit from one more unit. This makes the math easier because usually when we talk about one more unit, what that really means is delta Q is equal to 1, and it's a lot easier to divide by 1. So let's suppose that I'm willing to pay $2.50 for 3 bites of ice cream and $2.75 for 4 bites of ice cream. So in other words, if you give me no other options but a bowl that has three bites of ice cream, the most I would pay for it is $2.50. If you charge me $2.51, I'd say, you know what? Not worth it. I'll just have no ice cream. Well, willingness to pay is the same as total benefit, right? So if I am willing to pay $2.50, that means you can quantify my enjoyment of ice cream at $2.50. The dollars really help us put things in terms of something we understand and allows us to make comparisons, right? So it's hard for me to say, how much do you like 3 bites of ice cream without using dollars, right? Like, oh, I like it a lot or something like that. Whereas if we put dollars in front of it, that allows us to compare how much I like 3 bites of ice cream versus how much I like 4 bites of ice cream. So let's calculate the marginal benefit of that 4th bite of ice cream. And again, what we're thinking about is not how much I'm willing to pay for a bowl with 4 bites of ice cream. That's given right here. What we're thinking about now is I have the bowl with 3 bites of ice cream in it. Someone says, hey, I'll throw one more bite on top of that. One more bite on your bowl of ice cream. How much am I willing to pay for them to give me one more bite of ice cream? That is marginal benefit. So marginal benefit is equal to the change in total benefits divided by the change in quantity. Well, we know that my total benefit is changing from 250 to 275. So it's going up a quarter. And my number of units is going from 3 bites to 4. So 4 minus 3 is 1. As we said, the bottom of this fraction is 1 as usual. So usually we think about going from some number of units to 1 more. So from 3 units to 1 more. So we have 25 cents divided by 1. The marginal benefit I get from that 4th bite of ice cream is 25 cents. The 4th bite of ice cream has a marginal benefit of 25 cents. Let's expand this example and look at a table. So suppose that I'm willing to pay $1 for the first bite, $2 for 2 bites, 250 for 3 bites, and 275 for 4 bites. So before I just showed you this part. Now what I've done is I've expanded it to let you know how much I enjoy a 1-bite bowl of ice cream and a 2-bite bowl of ice cream. So let's start filling out this table. So first question is, what number goes in the shaded rectangle? The answer here is $1. How do we get there? Well, anytime we want to calculate marginal benefit equals change in total benefit divided by change in quantity. Our total benefit is equal to, we go from $2 or from $1 to 2, so we get an extra $1 in benefit. Our change in quantity, we went from 1 unit to 2, so our quantity goes up by 1. So that is just $1 divided by 1, marginal benefit of $1. Next one. Now what goes in the shaded rectangle? So what's the marginal benefit of the 3rd bite of ice cream? The answer here is 50 cents. Let's see how we get there. Change or marginal benefit equals change in benefit divided by change in quantity. Here my benefit goes from $2.50 to 2. So how much does that change? $2.50 minus $2 is equal to 50 cents. Divided by my change in quantity, I'm going from 2 units to 3, which is a change of 1. So 0.5 divided by 1 is 0.5. So my marginal benefit here is 50 cents. So I get a marginal benefit of 50 cents from the 3rd bite of ice cream. Now let's look at marginal costs. We'll say that I have decided to open an ice cream store. All of the ice cream will be hand-churned by 1 employee. So if you're unfamiliar with how this would work, the old style ice cream things are shown here. Essentially, you put the ice cream ingredients in this little bowl, put the little bowl in the big bowl of ice and salt, and you turn that crank. And as you turn the crank, the ice cream freezes, which means that the crank gets harder and harder to turn. It's quite a bit of work. So as that employee gets more fatigued, I have to pay him more money to keep him churning. Specifically, he demands a higher wage for each successive gallon churned. What's going on is he's churned 1 gallon. Now churning a second seems a lot more unpleasant because his arm's tired. So if I'm going to make him do this more unpleasant task, I'm going to have to pay him more money. So let's look at a table of total costs. So the employee sort of walks up to me at the beginning of the day. He gives me an offer sheet and he says, listen, I will churn 1 gallon for you for $10, or I will churn 2 gallons of ice cream for $21. So let's calculate the marginal cost here. So go ahead and fill in the shaded rectangle. The answer here is 11. How do we get there? Well, we want to think about the cost of making 1 more gallon of ice cream. If I make 1 more gallon, I go from a cost of $10 to a cost of $21. 21 minus 10 is 11. So the cost of the 2nd gallon is 11. So I pay him $10 for the 1st gallon and 11 for the 2nd gallon. I have to pay him more for the 2nd gallon because he's tired and is demanding more money. Now let's see if we can go the other way and think of the total cost of producing 3 gallons. Try to fill that in. The answer here is $36. How do we get there? Well, it costs $21 to make 2 gallons and $15 for the 3rd. So what that means is now after 2 gallons, his arm's really getting tired and he really just wants to go home. And he says, listen, if you want me to churn a 3rd gallon, you're going to have to pay me $15 for that gallon. At that point, now I'm paying the $21 it costs for the first 2 plus the 15 for the 3rd, that it costs a total of 21 plus 15, which is $36 for me to get 3 gallons churned. And if you want, you can see that the last one is 36 plus 22. The total cost of producing 4 gallons is $58. Now what we're going to do is take what we've learned about marginal benefits and take what we've learned about marginal costs and put them together to actually try to make a prediction about how someone will make a decision. Remember, that's what we said. Economics, all about choices. We're going to use this framework of how people make decisions to predict what decisions they will make. Now we're finally going to do that. So we're going to say that I have decided to build a home in Hazlet, Michigan, which is where I live. It's a little bit east of East Lansing. I value the first 2,000 square feet at $150 per square foot, and I value all additional square feet at $100 per square foot. Notice that this is hinting at decreasing marginal benefits. Essentially, if you think about when you're designing a house, the first square feet that the most important things to have in a house are those that give you really high marginal benefits. That's like, having a kitchen and having bathrooms and having somewhere to sleep. Beyond that, once you get to a certain size house, the extra space is not really giving you that much extra value. So, if you have a house with 8 bedrooms, then most of which are empty, you really get that much enjoyment out of a 9th bedroom that's going to be empty. Or you're going to, enjoy a slightly bigger living room. So decreasing marginal benefits. Initially, the first things you put in your house, the most important things, give you a lot of benefit. And at some point, the adding extra space to your house just really isn't really giving you that much enjoyment. Now let's look at the cost side. The builder charges $100 per square foot for the first 1,500 square feet and $125 per square foot for all additional square feet. This is an example of increasing marginal costs. So we can think about here what's going on is on the property, there's some amount of land that's really well suited for building. It's nice and flat, the ground is appropriate, there's no trees in the way, things like that. Beyond that, this land is sloped, there's trees that need to be cut down, things like that. And so if I'm going to be building a large house that doesn't just fit on the easy to develop land, if I'm going to have to pay the builder to do things like chop down trees and flatten land, well, he's going to charge me a premium to do that. So beyond the easy to develop area, I'm going to have to pay more money for all these extra things that he has to do in order to make the land suitable for a large house. So I could calculate every possible home size, calculate my total benefit, calculate my total cost, and see what size is best. This would be similar to deciding exactly how much to eat before I open the pint. It's very difficult, right? You think about how many different home sizes are possible. It's an infinite number, right? I could start at 1 foot and go up to as many as I can count. Instead, I think marginally. For each additional square foot, what are the benefits and costs? So again, we're going to take this big decision, how big should my house be, and break it down to a whole bunch of little decisions. Should I build 1 more square foot? That's a small decision there. Do I want 1 more square foot? How about 1 more than that? This table right here just takes what I showed in words before and condenses it. So it shows that marginal benefit starts at 150. Once I get above 2,000 square feet, it goes down to 100. Marginal cost starts at 100. Once I get above 1,500 square feet, cost goes up to 125. So let's think about what I'm going to do here, how I would make this decision. Well, what I'm going to do is for each additional square foot, think about the benefits and costs. And so if we start off, there is a benefit of $150. The cost is $100. 150 is greater than 100. You can think of this as, what if you could pay $100 for an Amazon gift card that is worth $150? Probably your valuation on an Amazon gift card is $150 gift card is close to $150 because we can all find something to spend money on Amazon. So if you could get a $150 gift card for $100, that's definitely something you would do, right? So all of those first 1,500 square feet. All right, I get $150 in benefit. It only cost me $100. Yes, let's build those square feet. Let's build square foot number 1,200. Square foot 1,201. Each time I add on to the square foot, my benefit exceeds my cost. Let's keep doing it. Now we get to square foot number 1,501. And now we're at the point where the builder has said, listen, I've exhausted all of the easy to build on land. Now we're going to have to start leveling some hilly land. You're going to have to, and so that means instead of paying $100, I'm going to have to pay $125. Well, I say, all right, I'm still getting $150 in benefit. That's greater than the 125. So I want to keep building. This is the idea that you've bought a bunch of Amazon gift cards for $100. They're $150 gift cards. Now you could still buy the $150 gift card, but you have to pay $125. Well, that's still a good deal, right? It's not quite as good as before, but paying $125 for something that you value at $150, that's something you'll do. So I'm going to keep building. I'll give that builder his $125 per square foot because I'm getting a valuation of $150 per square foot. Now let's finish. Now we've gotten to 2,000 square feet. Now I've put all the rooms that I want, and everybody has a bedroom. And now I'm just thinking about, well, do I really want to make my bathroom that much bigger, or have room for an even bigger couch or something? Now I see that my marginal benefit has gone down to 100. Now I see that my benefit's only 100. The cost is still $125. Now I would essentially be paying $125 for a $100 Amazon gift card, which makes no sense and is not something I would do. So what happened was I decided to keep building here, and then after I get to square foot number 2,000, stop. So let's recap. For the first 2,000 square feet, marginal benefit was greater than marginal cost, so I want to keep adding square footage. So I keep building. After 2,000 square feet, the marginal benefit of $100 is less than the marginal cost of $125, so I do not want to add those square feet. So if you start building, keep going until you get to 2,000, stop once you've built that 2,000 square foot. What you wind up with is a 2,000 square foot house. Next, suppose that my preference toward housing size changes. Specifically, my marginal benefits decrease. For example, I get rid of my large furniture, or I decide to have my children share a bedroom. And we'll say an updated table of marginal benefits and marginal costs is shown below. Okay. Now, how large of a house will I choose to build? The answer here is I will choose to build a 1,500 square foot house. How do we get there? Well, for square footage number 1 to 1,500, so each time I add a square foot, I'm getting 120 in benefit. It only costs me 100. 120 is greater than 100, so I keep going. Once I get to 1,501 square feet, now my benefit from it's only 100. 100 is less than 125, which means that I am going to stop. So I built to 1,500, then I stopped. I wind up with a 1,500 square foot house. It's all for this time. Next time we will continue looking at fundamentals.